It's Thirsty Thursday. You're so thirsty, thirsty Thursday. Thirsty for knowledge, thirsty Thursday. Drink it up.
Hi, I'm Katie, and while I hate to admit it, I'm a workaholic. I'm just kidding. I do not hate to admit that. In fact, most of the time I wear it as a badge of honor. And people who know me, I know your jaw is on the floor right now and you're going, "Not Katie, there's no way she's a workaholic." Yeah, right. If you've been in my life for more than 2 minutes, you know that I'm definitely a workaholic. So, why am I admitting this to you on camera for all the world to see? Well, 4 years ago, my life changed. And I went from working in a corporate environment to working from home. I'm sharing this today because it's been a struggle for me. The last 4 years have been something of a personal journey, not only through starting and running a brand new business, but also through maneuvering that change of the corporate world to essentially working from home. And typically I'm traveling and speaking in different areas, working with different clients, but when I'm not traveling, I'm at home, and that's a huge adjustment. And for someone who already has the tendencies to be consumed with work and be a workaholic, it's a lot easier when the work is just 2 feet away. It's easy to consume ourselves with that distraction. So today I share with you the Workaholic's Guide to Work-Life Balance. I think one of the most difficult things about being a workaholic, just like any other addiction, is that it feels good. And being a workaholic is actually something that the world rewards, right? We brag about not taking our vacation time. We brag about staying up 3 nights in a row to get something done. We brag about being able to work stronger, harder, faster than everyone else because we don't give up and they're lazy. And so it creates this idea that that's what's required from us in the workplace. And the truth of the matter is that if we consume ourselves with work, just like anything else, it can become bad. Chocolate's not bad, but when you consume yourself with chocolate, it's bad. Okay, so I'm not a therapist, but I struggle with this, and so what I've learned through my journey over the last 4 years is that the workaholic tendency is basically like any other addiction. You're using that to avoid something else. And so my first survival tip for you is recognizing what we're trying to avoid and just acknowledging it. Like, okay, I'm working 14 hours straight because if I seem like I'm always busy, I don't have to deal with my kids, or I don't have to have that argument that was started yesterday that we never finished, right? So recognize what you're trying to avoid and come to terms with it. Create a plan of, okay, what am I going to do to address that so that I'm not avoiding that problem and filling my time with work. Okay, so let's move on to my second survival tip. Now, if you're anything like me, which I know you're not because I am 1 in a million, but maybe you have similar feelings from time to time. I don't know. Let's just assume for the sake of Thirsty Thursday that you have this issue too. So for me, I'll get in the zone. And when I get in the zone and I'm really focused on what I'm doing and I have all these creative ideas flowing and I'm just like, yes, 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 bam, bam, bam. I don't want to stop. Because I don't want that feeling, really that adrenaline to stop. I'm afraid if it stops that I won't get it back. So I work through lunch. I work through the evening. I go to bed and I'm laying in bed and I get a thought and I don't want to wait until tomorrow because I want to take action on it. And so I get out of bed and I start working again. Okay, this kind of sounds a little manic, but here's the thing. There might be other things wrong with me. there's definitely other things wrong with me, for sure. But here's what I do when I recognize that pattern and I see that happening. I kind of put a mental stop in place. I'll say, okay, when I finish this task, I'm going to take a break. So I recognize, hey, this is happening. I can't be consumed with this. This is not good. My eyes are maybe burning from staring at a screen for too many hours. And so what I do is, instead of just going, I'm going to stop right now and go off somewhere else, because that's going to make me feel awful and lazy and ugh. What I do is I create a stopping point for myself, and I say, okay, whenever I get to this point, then I can take a break. And that does two things. First of all, it challenges me, and I love a good challenge, so then I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna get to that. But second of all, it puts me in the right headspace. I know mentally when I get there, it's time to take a break. And then I go and I do something else. And it can be something within my house, it can be some sort of exercise activity, it might even be watching a TV show, or perhaps eating a meal, right? But I make sure that I get that break in, because it's ultimately better for my brain. And as much as I might be in the zone and thinking I'm using all these creative juices, normally when I do step back and then come back to it, I'm fresh and I have all kinds of new ideas. So survival tip number 2 is make sure you're taking breaks. But if you can't just be regimented with it, then make sure that you are kind of setting yourself up with some milestone breaks. My third survival tip for you kind of ties into the taking break. I think it's important that we recognize the difference between a strong work ethic and being a workaholic. Having a strong work ethic is being committed, is getting up every day and going to work, is when you're at work giving 100% of yourself, trying your best. That's a strong work ethic. Being a workaholic is so much more than that. I think it starts, especially for me, at a very young age, a strong work ethic was instilled in me. And so I think that that's something that's good, and I appreciate that to this day. But I think that also allows you to easily fall into becoming that workaholic. And when you're using work to avoid another situation, or when you're using work to fill a void in your life, or when you're using work in unproductive ways, then that's when it becomes detrimental to you. And sometimes we're kind of forced into being a workaholic. You may have an employer who calls you at all hours of the day or night. You may have someone who's very demanding and isn't respectful of your own quality time with your family. And that's a difficult situation to be in. It's one that I've personally experienced, and I'm not going to pretend to know exactly how to handle it, because when you're under the pressure of somebody else who's paying you your salary, then sometimes it's hard to say no. But what I can tell you is that I wish I would have really worked harder in the past to really take care of survival step number 3. And that is taking that day of rest. So for me personally, I might allow myself to work 12-hour days, 14-hour days. I might allow myself to go to that place where I'm up at 3 a.m. But I make sure I've really worked hard in the last 12 months to create a day of rest for myself. And that might mean vegging out and watching Netflix. It might mean going and doing something fun. It might mean just, sleeping. But it might mean cleaning my house. But what I do is make sure that if I'm gonna put in that kind of time the other days of the week, that I allow myself that time to recharge. And I really wish I would have started that a long time ago, because I didn't understand the value of it, and I didn't understand how much more productive I would be in those days that I was working like that if I would have allowed myself to recharge. Because I was so exhausted that, I kind of all the things that I was avoiding caught up with me, and they all flooded me at once. And so it's very important that you take that day of rest. Okay, continue to collaborate and brainstorm with others. It's very, very easy to kind of isolate yourself, put yourself in a back room, a back corner, and not come out. for days. But I think it's important to remember that as human beings, we need that connection with people. And in addition to that, connecting with others will just make us more creative, and it is re-energizing. So this means different things to different people. So for you, it might mean participating in some sort of social club once a week. It might mean being part of a religious group or organization, meeting with them. It might mean being part of a mastermind group. But it's important that you connect and collaborate with others on a regular basis. And especially if you're a workaholic, you need other people who maybe are falling into these same tendencies, but also you need some other people in your life to help balance that out. I know for me personally that, I thrive around other people who are like me because it's challenging. It's like, oh, you worked 12 hours, well, I worked 13, right? And so you push each other. But then I also need people in my life to help kind of reel me in and who remind me that it's important to take breaks and enjoy life, right? So I need to make time for those things. And my last survival tip for all you workaholics out there is to have fun. One of the benefits of being able to work from home is in some ways you do get to create your own schedule. Yes, we have meetings that we have to attend. Yes, there's deadlines that we need to meet. But for the most part, you can choose when you do these things. So you might choose to work from 1 to 3 a.m. so that you can actually do something enjoyable with friends or family during the day. So I'm not trying to bash being at home because it is truly a blessing and it can be really great for the workaholic within. So for all you workaholics out there trying to survive the not so 9 to 5, remember, recognize your avoidance. What is it that you're trying to avoid by filling your time with all of your work? And pay attention to it, address it, and remember that it's okay to work and put in long hours and have a good work ethic, but it's not okay to avoid what's really going on. Number 2, make sure you're taking those breaks. Whether you're setting a timer, like I always suggest, or you're setting up personal goals so that when you're in the zone, you might work for 2-3 hours straight, but you have a goal in mind that says, okay, once I reach this point in this task, I'm going to take a break. Number 3, use that day of rest. 7 days in a week, choose one. And it doesn't have to be Sunday, it doesn't have to be Saturday, it can be a Tuesday if you want it to be. But pick a day and use that day of rest. It doesn't necessarily mean you're laying around doing nothing, but do something different that doesn't involve work. Number 4, make sure you're collaborating and brainstorming with others. Connection is key. And number 5, take time to have fun. What are we working so hard for if we're not going to enjoy our lives? It's important that we take time to stop and smell the roses.